Hello, my resin monkeys! I thought it'd be a good idea to make a video dedicated to the topic of why pinning is so important. To put it bluntly, if you don't pin your figures, they will break into 1,000 tiny pieces. I've gotten questions over the years asking why I pin and if I pin all the pieces in a kit when you see me do one of my videos. Even though I have a video explaining how to pin, I guess this would be a good opportunity to drill in this topic a little deeper and revisit it with fresh eyes and perspectives, I guess, even though not much has changed since then. But anyways, I am doing this because I think it should be something that should be said, because I don't want to keep answering questions in the future, just like the putty video. I've learned the hard way that if the pieces don't have internal support, they can and will probably break in the future, either by accident because you moved it or you toppled it over and all of a sudden it's on the floor. And all those hours that you spent working on that kit is now in 1,000 pieces, like I mentioned earlier. Or you live in the looming threat of the San Andreas fault and you want to make sure your figures survive in case the big one comes around. The very first kits I worked on didn't have any pins at all. I just glued them together. Ask me where they are. In the fucking trash bin! I understand pinning can be quite intimidating. It was for me at the beginning. Trust me, I know. Sometimes you think you're drilling in straight, but it's actually at the wrong angle. And other times you just don't know what the fuck you're doing, because the pieces do not align no matter what you do. I've been doing this for years and it just comes natural to me after a shit ton of practice. But if you're one of those people that are still afraid to do it, I have 3 ways that I can show you to get the perfect alignment. Not all the time, because some of them do require some practice, but these are ways to go around in case the normal way you're doing it, whichever it is not working for you. These are the methods that you commonly see me use in my videos, so this time I'm going to take it slow and explain exactly how they go. Some old kits like this one will have pinholes left from when the sculptor worked on the kit, and you can use this as a guide for you to know where to drill. But newer kits that were 3D sculpted and casted won't have this. Regardless, let's get into the different methods of pinning. Now for the wire you can use. They already sell brass rods you can purchase in a wide variety of sizes. I just stacked up on some galvanized wire from the hardware store and it lasts for years. I use it to pin medium to large parts in most of my kits. I have 0.2mm up to 2mm wire, and all you need for them is just to have the right drill bits for which you can buy easily. The first one is pretty simple. You get yourself some sticky tack and a pointy tool. Drill into one side as straight as you can. Take the other side and stick the tack on it. Press both parts together just slightly because you don't want the tack to stick on the wrong side, and then pull it apart. The tack side will now have a tiny pinhole imprinted, and if it doesn't, it means that there's too large of a gap between the parts that you need to add more tack to get the imprint. Take your pointy tool and press into that tiny dot with force. You now have the exact location of where you need to drill your second hole. As far as how deep you need to drill, it depends on the parts you're pinning. When there's a long peg like this, I'll usually drill in deeper and pass the peg length into the piece. I always do this so that the peg will be reinforced on the inside and won't have the possibility of breaking and taking the pin with it. You can always use a tiny bit of liquid masking to imprint on both sides on the right place. But this will only work if there are no gaps between the parts, because if there's a gap, then obviously nothing will transfer, because there's nothing to touch against. The next method you can use if you're having trouble aligning the pin at the right angle between the two parts, or maybe you just can't seem to drill in the right place, then it would be to drill straight through both of them. Take both parts, put them together firmly, and try not to move them. Take your drill and drill straight through them. It's a time-tested method I've used for years, but it does have pros and cons. Pro: perfect alignment all the time. The only con is that you're left with a small pinhole that you will need to fill out later, which could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how you are going to work on your kit, especially for skin areas. If you plan to use a clear method to paint, the filler will be visible. If you plan to prime the area, or if it's going to be hidden and puttied later, then it's no big deal. You'll cover it without a problem. If it's something large like a leg or a torso, I'll usually drill in maybe a centimeter deep, or about half an inch for you Americans. If it's a small size, I'll usually drill in a few millimeters.
Magic.
There's also a more lengthy way to pin. It's a bit more troublesome, but it works well when the part connection is awkward or there's no way to drill through the pieces to pin because you can't get a straight drill through it, or you can't drill in the right spot no matter what you do. What you need to do is drill and insert a pin as you would normally would with any piece. Take the second part where you're connecting that piece to and drill a bigger hole. In this case, a hole larger than the pin size that you inserted on your first piece. What follows is you will fill that hole with putty. This could be epoxy putty or any other putty you use as a filler. Take some Vaseline and apply it to the pin, but most importantly, over the surface around it. Press both parts together and let it harden. Once ready, take them apart. You will now have a perfectly aligned pin connection. It might be a bit hard at first, but once you get the hang of it and get practice, it will be simple as pie. There's also the question, do you pin everything, even the tiniest of pieces? Most of the times, the answer will be yes. Why? Because there's so much variety in wire sizes, you really can't go wrong with finding the adequate size for even the tiniest piece. Small parts need to be pinned, especially because if you're just gonna glue them on, they will fall off eventually if you touch or handle the area without being careful. There will be times where I don't pin certain parts, but it's rare and I will only do it with very small parts that have a long and somewhat thick connection key, like a hand or a tiny earring, but I don't do it often. Now, if you don't want to pin, that is entirely your choice and it's, I guess, valid. Just make sure you're not gluing paint on paint, because paint will give out and so will it strip away from whatever surface you're gluing it to. Here, let me show you exactly what I mean. This is a perfect analogy for this. This is a temporary hook on my wall. As you can see, it's placed over paint. But with time, gravity did its thing and my frame fell, taking the hook and the paint with it. this is what will happen to your kit. The paint will strip away from the pieces and it will fall apart. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. So never glue paint on paint. I see a lot of people doing this all the time in videos, and it just makes me cringe to just think that they might have an accident in the future and, you know, tip the figure, whatever it is that they were working on, and it will break into 1,000 pieces, like I said before. All their hard work ruined because of ignorance or maybe laziness. I will never know. If you do not plan on pinning at all, then just be sure to cover any connecting areas so that you can, you know, glue resin on resin and it will be a permanent bond, although not as stable without a pin, but still a permanent bond. Although that's how broken pegs happen. But hey, that's up to you. I'm not here to tell you what to do, just how to do it. Okay? Okay. I know what you're gonna ask. Leona, what about magnets? I know you've probably seen Japanese modelers use them a lot, and let me tell you that while I get that it might look easier and less of a hassle, it's really the same or a bit more annoying than wire pinning. You can use magnets, but it won't work as well if the parts have considerable large gaps between them. Unless the kit was sculpted and casted perfectly, you're going to have a hard time getting those pieces to stay connected if your magnets are not strong enough. Old kits and even some new ones are not perfect, so it doesn't always work. Newer 3D sculpted and casted kits would be a good candidate for that, which are most of the kits that you see them Japaneses is working on. Installing magnets is pretty easy and can be used if you just can't get wire pinning right or don't want to keep hassling with it. You just need to make sure that you're installing them on the right side on both ends. If not, they will repel and the parts simply won't connect. And just the same as wire pinning, it could be fast or it could take a while to install them compared to regular pinning. It's all reduced to practice, so don't get fooled by people telling you it's faster, because if they've done it long enough, they will be fast at it, and you'll think you're bad at it if you don't do it as quickly as the person in the video. Just the same way that you should not feel bad if you can't pin as fast and as easily as I do. I've had years and years of practice doing this. Magnets are not always very convenient if the parts are heavy. There's so much the magnet can hold before being attached to something heavy that gravity will be stronger and the parts will simply not stay together. It's honestly a preference. I prefer wire over magnets because it's what I'm used to. It's fast and easy for me, again, due to all the practice I have. Magnets could be a little bit more user-friendly, but they're not always convenient because of what I just mentioned. Larger pieces will always need large wire pins. Plus, pieces have the possibility of falling apart unless you glue the magnets together. I use magnets to just help me interchange parts or when making cast-offs, but I don't trust them as much as I trust wire pins for stability. And with that, I hope I shed some light on why it's important to pin your kid, and especially I hope my ways of pinning will help you in the future. And if you would like to see me paint this Yoko and give you an in-depth explanation on the entire painting process, be sure to subscribe because this is going to be a two-part series of Let's Get Close and Technical with Leona. I'm going to go deep into the very technical aspects of model kit building and painting, giving you the whys and the hows and the what's that's. All of it. I'm giving you all of it. Usually, I explain in my videos what I do, but it's like it's mostly a superficial way. I don't go really in detail, but I am doing something a little bit different this time, and I'm going to go completely into, you know, everything for model building and painting. The second video that I will be releasing next month will be that of a 3D printed kit. So it's going to be a traditional kit and a 3D printed one. And if that's something that interests you, well, you know what to do. Even though I mention what I'm doing through my videos and I do the same thing over and over again, I thought I'd just take this time and take it slow and explain exactly what it is I'm doing and why. From tools to techniques and materials, everything. Be sure to leave a comment in this video so that if you have any particular questions regarding model kit painting or building, I will be sure to cross-reference them to see if it's not something that I'm already going to mention in this video so that I can give you the most complete information possible, although I won't be able to give you everything because there might be some things that don't apply to this kit. But Hey, leave your comment and we'll get to it in the next video. Until next time, my dear resin monkeys, happy pinnings. Bye.